The descent into darkness, the story of good and evil, the beginning, the nature of good. In the heart of every person lies an innate understanding of good, a natural inclination toward what is right, pure, and virtuous. Good is not just a set of moral rules, it's a fundamental part of our being, a guiding principle that helps us navigate life. It's found in acts of kindness, love, and integrity. It's the feeling of satisfaction when you help someone in need, the joy of creating something beautiful, the peace that comes from living in harmony with others. Goodness is rooted in pleasure, but this pleasure is different from mere hedonistic enjoyment. It is a deeper, more fulfilling sensation that arises from doing what is right, from making choices that are aligned with our highest values and principles. This pleasure is tied to the truth of the world. It reflects the reality of what it means to live a meaningful life. The emergence of evil, the temptation of excess, but within the pursuit of good, there lies a potential danger, the temptation to overindulge. Pleasure, when experienced within the bounds of what is good, is fulfilling and sustaining. But when pursued without restraint, it begins to lose its potency. The once vibrant pleasures that come from good deeds and meaningful experiences can start to feel dull, repetitive, and unsatisfying. This is where the seed of evil is planted. The initial temptation is subtle, almost unnoticeable, a whisper in the back of your mind suggesting that perhaps there's something more, something beyond the ordinary pleasures of life. The pleasure derived from good starts to feel insufficient, and you begin to crave something different, something more intense. This craving marks the beginning of a dangerous path. The idea forms that perhaps by adding a touch of something forbidden, something that mixes pleasure with a hint of pain, you can reignite the thrill, recapture the excitement that once came so naturally. The mixing of pain and pleasure, the birth of evil. As you begin to entertain this idea, evil starts to take shape. You experiment, adding a small amount of pain to your pleasure, a minor violation of the good. This combination creates a new sensation, one that is more intense, more thrilling. It's like suddenly seeing ultraviolet light, a spectrum of sensation that was previously invisible, now made startlingly clear. This mix of pain and pleasure acts as a stimulant. It broadens your emotional spectrum, opening up a new realm of experience that feels powerful and addictive. The pleasure you once knew is amplified, made more potent by the addition of something dark and forbidden. What you don't realize is that this is the first step down a path that will lead you far from the good you once held dear. As you continue down this path, the lines between pleasure and pain begin to blur. What was once a clear distinction becomes muddied, and the thrill of mixing the two starts to consume you. The pleasure derived from good alone no longer satisfies. You need the added intensity of pain to feel anything at all. The growth of evil, a shift in values. With each new indulgence, evil grows stronger within you. The mix of pleasure and pain that once felt novel now becomes necessary. Your brain, rewired by this new experience, starts to crave more. The once simple, wholesome pleasures of life no longer suffice. The good, which was once your guide, starts to lose its place, overshadowed by the growing need for more extreme sensations. Your value system begins to shift, almost imperceptibly at first. What was once unthinkable becomes acceptable, even desirable. The boundaries that once kept you aligned with good start to erode. You find yourself justifying actions that you would have previously condemned, all in the name of pursuing a more intense experience. The good is sacrificed, piece by piece, in exchange for the fleeting thrill that evil now provides. The possession, evil takes hold. As you descend further, evil begins to take possession of you. It's no longer just an idea or a temptation. It becomes a part of your biology, your neurology. The brain, which once signaled you to pursue what was truly beneficial, is now hijacked by this new mechanism. The networks of endorphins and dopamine that were designed to reflect the truth of the world now serve a different master, driving you to seek out ever greater highs. You become a host to this growing force. Your actions, once guided by reason and morality, are now driven by reflexive responses, automatic behaviors that protect and perpetuate the addiction to this new form of pleasure. You are no longer in control. you are being controlled by a mechanism that you barely understand. This mechanism is built on lies, self-delusions that convince you that you are not just justified in your actions, but superior because of them. The more you indulge, the more you believe that you have transcended the limitations of good, that you are free from the constraints that once bound you. But this freedom is an illusion. In reality, you are becoming enslaved to a cycle that is impossible to break. The trap, the cycle of addiction. Now fully immersed in this new way of life, you find yourself trapped in a cycle of addiction. The pleasure you seek is no longer pure. It's tainted by the pain that you have learned to crave. The brain's reward system, once a reliable guide, now leads you further and further into darkness, demanding ever more extreme forms of gratification. This cycle is self-perpetuating. The more you indulge, the more your brain reinforces the behavior, creating a feedback loop that is difficult, if not impossible, to escape. You are caught in a trap where the pursuit of pleasure becomes an endless chase, each new high fading more quickly than the last, each new experience leaving you more empty and unsatisfied. What was once a simple desire for more has now become a consuming need. The good that once provided meaning and fulfillment is now a distant memory, replaced by a hollow pursuit that can never truly satisfy. The organization of sadistic pleasure, the final descent. As evil takes over completely, your life becomes organized around the pursuit of sadistic pleasure. The mix of pain and pleasure that once felt like a novel exploration is now the center of your existence. You indulge in acts that are increasingly destructive, both to yourself and to others. The suffering that you once avoided is now something you seek out, using it as a tool to amplify your sensations. This is the final descent, the point at which you have fully crossed the boundaries of good and entered a world where evil reigns. The principles that once guided you are gone, sacrificed on the altar of superficial pleasure. You no longer see the value in life's higher principles. Instead, you are driven by a subconscious need to satisfy the cravings that now dominate your every thought and action. You have become a victim of your own desires, a prisoner of the very mechanism that you once thought would set you free. The good has been sacrificed, not for something greater, but for something empty and destructive. And the worst part is that you may not even realize what has happened. Your brain, now thoroughly confused and corrupted, believes that this path is the right one, that the pleasure you feel is all that matters. The final realization, the consequences of evil. But eventually, the truth begins to seep through the cracks. The highs that you once sought so desperately no longer bring the satisfaction they once did. The pleasure mixed with pain has become a burden, a constant reminder of the good that was lost in the process. You start to see the cost of your choices, the relationships that were destroyed, the opportunities that were missed, the parts of yourself that were sacrificed. You realize that what you thought was freedom was actually a form of enslavement. The power you felt was nothing more than an illusion, a trick of the mind that led you away from what was truly important. The good, which once seemed so mundane, now appears as a lost treasure, something that you can never fully reclaim. In this moment of clarity, you see the path for what it is, a descent into darkness, a journey that has led you away from truth and into a life of deception and pain. The mix of pleasure and pain, once so alluring, is revealed as a trap, a mechanism designed not to fulfill but to destroy. The conclusion, the true nature of good and evil. The story of good and evil is not just about right and wrong. It's about the choices we make and the paths we follow. Good is rooted in truth, in actions and experiences that align with our highest values and principles. It is fulfilling, meaningful, and sustaining, providing a foundation for a life well lived. Evil, on the other hand, is an illusion, a distortion of pleasure that leads us away from truth and into a cycle of addiction and destruction. It starts with the temptation to seek more, to push beyond the natural boundaries of good. It grows as we mix pain with pleasure, broadening our spectrum of sensation, but distorting our perception of reality. It takes over as it becomes part of our biology and neurology, driving us to sacrifice the good in pursuit of something that can never truly satisfy. In the end, the story of good and evil is a warning, a reminder that the pursuit of pleasure without boundaries, without respect for the good, leads not to fulfillment, but to emptiness and despair. It is a call to recognize the value of the good, to maintain the boundaries that protect our integrity, and to understand that true freedom and power come not from indulging in every desire, but from making choices that align with the truth of who we are. This is the path of good and evil. It is not just a story, but a journey that each of us must navigate, with the choices we make, determining whether we live in the light of truth or descend into the darkness of deception.